Well, all right. Well, ever since a rumor was posted on a message board, a group of football enthusiasts, their numbers unknown, but their voices heard loudly, have been supportive of and excited for a new AAA football game, and they were hoping that game was Joe Montana football. In fact, Joe Montana himself has posted on social media different items that have fueled speculation, followed by the scandalous T.J. Lauerman, and then by a person named Damon Groh, who has claimed to be the CEO of a company that is making a Joe Montana football game. Rumors were swirling, and months have gone by, and promises were made for a grand unveiling at E3. And that has now officially happened. And what has been confirmed is quite different than what some were hoping. And what has been confirmed about Joe Montana football is that, number one, right now it is being made as a mobile game. Number two, its earliest full release date would be sometime in 2016 for iOS, potentially followed by an Android. And the earliest that any sort of PC version of it would be made available would be 2017. And that comes straight from the mouth of the aforementioned Damon Groh. So the saga of Joe Montana football technically continues, but it is certainly not what that original message board post and post-message board posting rumors have been. T.J. Lauerman, you were at the center of this controversy from the beginning. What, sir? What are your thoughts now that the latest information has come straight from the mouth of the guy who's running the company that's making this game?
Yeah, I'm happy we actually have some confirmation of some stuff. Obviously, a lot of people are disappointed it's not a console game, but after seeing those graphics, if that's going to be a mobile game, that's pretty impressive. I've played a ton of mobile sports games, and 5 minutes later, I've stopped playing a ton of mobile sports games. And the way this looks, and if it's got good gameplay, this could be the first mobile sports game I'm actually really excited to play. So I'm really looking forward to what they can do.
Ryan Lewis, you have dabbled in developing sports games on mobile franchises. You've seen the screenshots and the videos that TJ is referring to. Is it even possible for a game like what we're seeing to get made on mobile devices, knowing the amount of time and effort that it takes to make something like this?
Oh yeah, I mean, the technology on iOS, at least since like probably iOS 7, to do those kind of graphics. I think Damon Grohe mentioned Infinity Blade, which that's kind of the poster child for creating these like AAA games on mobile. At least that was the hope. But when it comes down to it, I mean, it's possible. It's just I don't think a lot of companies do it because it's just such a huge risk to put that kind of AAA development into something where you have people that are like teams of 2 or 3 people making games that make a ton of money. So why put this huge investment when you don't even know if you're going to make even close to what teams that like smaller teams make, and that's your competition. So I mean, it's hard to say. I guess for me, like whenever it's not, I agree with TJ. The graphics look amazing. Who knows what the game, how it's going to control or any of that kind of stuff. But the biggest thing I think most people, myself included, have with the problem we have with mobile games is the controls. Like there's no haptic feedback. Like when you're using a virtual controller on an iPad, if you're trying to do that like with a controller, it just, for me, it never works. Like there's very few games where I like want to continue playing unless they're built for iOS, like that have like tap and swipe and that kind of stuff. So very curious to see what the plan is for controls and all those other things.
Brian Mideye, how did we get here? What do you think happened? Do you think that this game sort of has taken the path that many other games in the past have, which is a concept for and then an attempt to sell it and then making changes to the concept, and then another pitch, and then people come in and people go, and like, what do you think the path has actually been for where we've arrived right now with whatever Joe Montana football winds up being?
I think that's difficult to judge here because the way they have conducted themselves, or Groh and Montana has been disingenuous seemingly, and a lot of deception along the way about what the product actually was, because they would not clarify it yet. At the same time, they were playing off of the rumors and playing off of the made-up information that was swirling around. I mean, not only did they not do anything to dispel any of those rumors, but they tried to take advantage of them. And I think what you look at here is mobile games, they don't get announced a year and a half in advance or 2 years in advance or even a year or 6 months in advance. They tend to just drop on the App Store when they come out, and maybe they're accompanied by a press release. Mobile games don't get advance press, but what did they find themselves with? It is a game that was long from release, and yet they were getting stories written about them. The awareness was being raised for a mobile game that was a long ways off. And so I think they looked to take advantage of that, and they ended up building this community on people who do not have interest in a mobile game. I don't know if it began as a mobile game. Part of me would hope that it didn't, based on the way they promoted this thing, because the very first sign of this game was when Montana posted an image along with the hashtag, "You've waited long enough." And that was obviously a shot at Madden saying, "You've waited long enough for competition." They set it up. So we have all these other things where people were, got ideas about this game based on either a fake forum post or fake rumors made up on YouTube about the game. But they fanned the flames of this to the point where they had people believing it was a potential Madden competitor because they said things to make people believe that. With that hashtag, with the hashtag not just a roster update, that was clearly intended to get people thinking they were taking shots at Madden. So they said, whether they started it out as one idea and it ended up evolving into something else, it's irrelevant at this point, and nobody should really care why it is what it is. It is what it is. And so that's what we have to live with, and you either give it a shot because you're intrigued about a new mobile game, or you don't.
Ryan Lewis, this is not the first time that we've seen Damon Groh and Joe Montana work together. A couple of years ago, they were developing a game called IMFL, and they appeared on TechCrunch together talking about that. Since then, again, as Brian mentioned, Joe Montana himself has made tweets, referencing being on campus at Microsoft and with various motion capture things like that. So you're a, dare I say, student of the history of this situation, whatever you want to call it. I mean, ultimately, with what came out today, are you surprised? Is that what you expected? I know it's not what you were hoping for. So, when it all sort of finally came down, did it land where you thought it might, based on what you've looked into?
No, not at all. And I gotta say, doing a mocap session for a mobile game, I mean, that's a thing. That's something that happens there. I gotta say, I mean, I expected at the very least that it would be, a PC game. The thing about PC games is that if I want to make one, I just make one. I can put it out. I don't have to put it on Steam. I can just put up the file as an executable file. Anyone can play it. It's called freeware, shareware. It's existed for decades. So the fact that you're putting it out on mobile, it's a strategy that you have, whether it's coming from a publisher that we don't know about, whether it's coming from, Joe Montana himself, like really wants to put it on mobile, whatever it is, whatever the situation, it's a choice that was made seemingly a while back for whatever reason. But when it comes down to it is, like, I thought this was at least a PC game. Just seeing the graphics that I saw, knowing that there's a mocap session, all that kind of stuff. So when they came out and said it was a mobile game, I think TJ had been telling me it was going to be a mobile game for a while. I'm like, dude, they're not going to hire the art director guy who worked on Forza and stuff to make a mobile game. But I guess I was wrong. And it's like, when it comes down to it, I don't know the reasons, but I just kept thinking about all these things. I'm like, dude, we basically all got catfished. We got Manti Te'o'd, and it's. I don't think it was necessarily intentional, but I think very few people thought it was a mobile game. I think TJ and maybe the guys who run Operation Sports. Other than that, I think most people were like, dude, who's gonna make a mobile game with a mocap session with all these great graphics? But we were wrong.
Making a AAA game is a very difficult thing to do. TJ
is it difficult?
Yeah, that's a good point.
A game.
Yes, making any kind of game. Good point. Much less a AAA game. TJ Lauerman. One of the things that I found fascinating. It's impossible, I think, to quantify. Is how many people, what is truly the market for a game like this, right? Because one of the great things about the internet is that it allows a lot of people to have a voice, and it can sometimes make relatively small numbers of people seem like a lot. It can also sometimes, as we have seen in the past, be a galvanizing tool for a large amount of people to communicate a message. Do you think there is a large enough market of people that would pay full price for a competitor to Madden football in this day and age as an unlicensed product on a console? Not that that's going to happen, but is it even a viable? Is there a viable market for this kind of a game?
Probably not, really, and definitely at the start, if it doesn't have all the modes that you're looking for in a full sports game release, I definitely don't think people are going to be willing to spend $60 to just take a chance on something like that. That's why I think stuff like Super Mega Baseball has done really good by coming down at a low price point,
right?
Putting out what they have, and what, if there's a Super Mega Baseball 2 with more stuff in it, and they go for a higher price point, I'd be fully behind that. But yeah, coming out at $60, if that was a thing for a non-full featured game, like we might see some from AAA developers this year. Yeah, that's just something I don't think is going to work. But I'm interested. As I said, I'm still interested to see what this is. You were talking about the crowd size. I was actually looking at there's a Madden mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
It has about 500,000 reviews on it. So you have to have a Google Plus account to leave that review. So I assume there's at least 1 million, if not more, people who have played that game.
Oh, and it makes EA.
Several.
Oh man, like hundreds of millions almost at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a market on mobile for games. I don't know if they'd be there for an unlicensed game, but I mean, if it's a good game, in theory, it would get traction.
Sorry, I was just going to add on to that real quick, Rich. One thing to be clear about too is that the NFL license for mobile games is different. There's other games that have licenses besides Madden on mobile platforms, whether it's the NFL license or NFLPA. And in one of the interviews that I watched tonight, Damon Groh did mention something about negotiating with the players, or talked about player cards. So that might have been some negotiations that they've talked about, with the NFLPA or the NFL. So who knows if that's a strategy that they might employ. But I have to agree with TJ that if there's no license for a mobile game that's trying to compete with Madden, I think it's almost even worse, like in the mobile world.
As there are a ton of NFL licensed games on mobile, and it's not just like traditional gameplay type of football. There's also the Madden Mobile, which is more like an Ultimate Team for on the mobile platform, and then you have licensed games that are like tap games. You've got card battle games. You've got management style games. You've got an NFL license or NFLPA licensed Endless Runner. I mean, there's this huge variety. Oh yeah, there's this huge variety of NFL licensed stuff on mobile already. So this idea that a Montana football game is going to just drop in there and just be hugely popular, I think it's an inaccurate one. It's going to have an uphill battle there, which again is probably why they tried to take advantage of all the publicity they were getting. Because if you're just some other football game, unlicensed game that drops onto the App Store, you're not going to get any attention, and you're probably just going to fade out before even gaining any traction at all.
The other thing that makes me frankly believe that there aren't enough people that would be willing to spend the money to buy a big-time AAA football game is that there is no Kickstarter for this, right? I mean, Kickstarter is where everybody goes to get their games funded. And I have a strong feeling that if you're confident that you're going to be able to sell your game these days, you just go right to Kickstarter. And the exposure of doing a Kickstarter is that if you put it out there and hardly anybody signs up, that is devastating on multiple accounts, right? Number one, it's embarrassing, right? Just corporately embarrassing. And number two, clearly you know that your idea doesn't have a a market. So like, again, it's another one of those things. Like if this was really going to happen, I would have thought that it would just right to Kickstarter, boom, done. And that tells me there's also not a market for the kind of game that people think that they want. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, so we recently had a Kickstarter, and it was for Mutant League Football, and it failed. And I had heard from a lot of people like, man, if we could get Mutant League Football or Mutant Football League back, that'd be awesome. And it's a concept that I like too. Now the question, people can like concepts. Again, I always say, support the idea of more games, but asking for money from people up front is a dangerous thing. And there's a difference between, yeah, I'll support a football game if it's good, as compared to, yeah, I'll support anything just because it's football. That I'll support anything idea, I think, doesn't have the support of many people, which I think it's the reasonable thing is to wait and support what's tangible and what you actually, because it's your money. Don't give your money away for some kind of cause that doesn't mean anything in the end. Let's get a football game that's worthy of supporting, but we can't make that happen out of thin air. So it's a difficult situation. I'm not a big fan of the Kickstarters. We've seen, like I said, Mutant Football League fail. There's been a couple other football games that tried to get off the ground on Kickstarter years back. I think there was like a college football one that somebody tried to launch, and it was a scam. Yeah. It was a scam. So
it was a scam?
Yeah, there was a scam. Maybe there's a different one, but there was one that was just a flat-out scam using assets.
I think they said they had like all the licenses and all the players signed and stuff.
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's different.
Yeah, so there's not the trust there either. I know Kickstarter is big in some areas. I don't think that like a sports gamer is just going to give their money away for an idea, as much as they want competition and stuff. And I don't blame anybody for that.
Yeah, I think the lacrosse game Kickstarter got its funding, but they've also been making the lacrosse games on Xbox for
you
years.
need a track record of some sort, because again, there's put blind faith, and what you have here with Montana is a studio that's never made anything before, and what's that?
They've made mobile games or Facebook games, so
yeah, and they've also abandoned projects midway through. So I think that's one of the scary things about it is like
the track record.
Yeah, you need a sufficient track record and something that people can trust giving their money away to. There's far too many projects that even on Kickstarter never complete even after being fully funded.
Yeah, mobile games are a dime a dozen, right? Let's face it, whether they're licensed or not, hundreds come out seemingly every day. 99.9% of them get buried and never recoup their investment. We personally know the stories of people who have dedicated countless hours and resources and personal fortunes to them to not see anything come back. So, going mobile is by no means a path to guarantee to success. In fact, you would say the odds are decidedly stacked against you. And I think one of the things that not this specifically, but one of the things that has really become apparent over the last few years is that Electronic Arts' exclusive license has completely eliminated basically the ability for anybody to build a competitor, right? I mean, the barrier to entry at this point is so high to enter the console or AAA PC market to make a football game, because the amount of people that it would take, the amount of assets, the amount of time, the creation of an engine, football is a very specific thing. Hundreds of thousands of man hours is what it would take. So, I think ultimately, it has probably cost them a lot of money, but strategically they had the opportunity and they took it, and they basically prevented anybody from being able to step up. And as somebody who loves sports games, it's not a good thing. I mean, frankly, I'm glad that Madden, I believe, is a good game, and we have a lot of fun playing it. It's not perfect, and it would be great to have competition. So let's wrap this up. Let's go around the table really quickly. Brian Weedeye, will there ever be an actual Joe Montana 16/17? Will there actually ever be a football game, this game in any shape or form that comes out to the public?
And that's a fair question. The iOS version, I would put at probably slightly. I actually put odds up today on Twitter. I created some odds. Yeah, and slightly better than not chance for an iOS version. It's an underdog we'll ever get an Android game, and it's a huge, unlikelihood we'll ever see a PC game. I think, because it was even prefaced that we'll get to PC if the mobile games are successful. Number one, we don't know what successful means to them. We don't know how they're going to monetize it. It'll likely be free to play because that's what all the football games are, like Madden Mobile are now. You're not going to be able to sell it for like $7, $8, $9. So, and I don't see success there because they think just dropping a Montana name in there is gonna mean it. And now they've lost all their credibility throughout this process. So they're going to try to launch this thing if they eventually do get to it on iOS, and people aren't going to be listening. And that's going to be a major issue, and I'm not sure how they recover from that.
Ryan Lewis, will we ever see Joe Montana football in any shape or form?
It's hard to say because I think when you set your sights so high, and then you have this kind of devastating moment. I mean, I think we will. I think we'll at least see the iOS version, maybe the Android version. We'll see. But one of the things I just wanted to ask too, I know we're closing up here, but which would you guys prefer come out? This Joe Montana football that's supposed to be AAA, or that IMFL concept? Because now I'm like, if you're doing a mobile game, that IMFL concept to me was like way cooler for mobile than trying to compete with Madden Mobile, like just for my dollar or whatever I'd pay for it.
Well, do you want to explain what it was, Ryan?
Oh yeah, I guess if people don't know what IMFL is, it's basically like kind of more micro-managed fantasy football. So you basically decide to put kind of chips down or points down on whether you think it's going to be an incomplete pass or a complete pass, or do you think it's going to get, is this person going to tackle them, etc. So basically all I'm saying is that concept, like taking fantasy football and making it a more engaging experience versus trying to compete in a crowded mobile football space. To me, like now that I look at it, not to derail the conversation, I don't know. Like that was my outcome from it.
Well, yeah, I think the idea of a sim football game on mobile is one that's hard to comprehend because they've tried that. Other companies have tried that, and it's spectacularly failed. This is not the way people want to play with like an on-screen joystick type of thing. And we don't really know what this Montana football idea is. It might just be a single-player career mode thing where you're controlling one guy, which would actually make more sense for mobile than trying to control 11 at any given time. But Ryan, Madden already stole the fantasy football concept with Draft Champions.
Yeah, but theirs is a console space, and this is a mobile space. So I don't know.
Yeah.
TJ Larriman, will we ever see Joe Montana football in any form?
Yeah, I hope so. I hope we even make it to Android because no games that I like make it to Android. I can't wait for Fallout Shelter, though. That should be kind of cool.
Well, based upon what experience I have and based upon listening to the incredibly vague information that we've gotten, I am willing to say that I do not believe for a minute that we'll ever see Joe Montana football. It's much further off than anybody thought. I frankly don't believe that there's anything actually there. I think this has all just been design concepts and ideas, and I don't think we'll ever see it. But it's possible that I'm wrong, and I'd love to be wrong, but I don't think so. I think this is all an attempt, and I just don't think we're ever going to get the game. So we'll see what happens, but that is the official Hit the Pass Joe Montana football report for now. But I'm sure Ryan Lewis will come up with something soon that we'll need to talk about again.